Hey friends, Leanne here from healthfulpursuit.com. I'm a holistic nutritionist, best-selling author of the Keto Diet, the Keto Diet Cookbook, and Keto for Women, and you are watching the Keto Diet Podcast. Today is episode 315, and we're talking about eating psychology today. Our guest and I chatted a lot about how to become empowered within your eating choices, nutritional beliefs and the ones that are toxic that hold us back from our goals, a whole bunch of things. I'm really excited to introduce y'all to eating psychology in this way. Our guest today is Autumn Smith, who suffered from a debilitating digestive issue and crippling anxiety for most of her life. Specialist after specialist told her nothing could be done, and she was ready to give up. But as a one final attempt at a life free of health issues, Autumn decided to harness the power of whole foods. She cleaned up her diet in just 30 days and her IBS was cured. But that was just the beginning. She also had less anxiety, was mentally sharper, and a bubbly side of her that she'd forgot existed came back. Since then, Autumn has dedicated her life to helping others harness the power of whole foods to live vibrant lives. In 2013, she and her husband Chaz launched Paleo Valley, a company dedicated to helping people get the essential nutrients they need without added sugars, grains, or other harmful ingredients. But they didn't stop there. After learning about the healing powers of grass-fed, pasture-raised meat, both for our bodies and the planet, Autumn and Chaz started their next venture. In 2018, they launched Wild Pastures, a regenerative meat delivery service that sends 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised meat directly to your doorstep. I've known Autumn since when they started their first company, and it's been so cool to see how she's learning about the body and applying it to women's health. So I'm really excited to share this interview with you today. Before we get started, I just want to thank our two sponsors today. Dry Farm Wines, who make keto-safe, sugar-free wines. I will include a link down below so you can get a free, well, you have to pay a penny for this bottle of wine, but it's worth it. And also Eaton Hemp, who make the most amazing, most powerful CBD products, lotion, tinctures, a lot of stuff. So I will include the coupon code down below so you can check out that if you're interested in CBD. So let's get over to this interview. Hey, Autumn, how's it going?
It's going very well, Leanne. Really, really honored to be here. So thanks for having me on. Always great to see
Yeah,
you. You just make me smile.
always so great to see you. It's been a while. It's been a
I,
really long while.
it's been like a year, I feel like. But I mean,
Has to
this
be.
year, so many things have changed.
What is
Oh,
a year? I don't even know at this point.
wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Good to be back.
So I would love to hear in your own words kind of who you are, what you do, how you got involved in eating psychology.
Yeah. Well, I was basically someone who struggled hardcore when she hit her teens, like not only digestive issues. I think it started with digestive issues and then just no one really had a solution for me. I lived in this small town in Montana and I don't think people really understood it back then anyway. But then they kind of snowballed into like some mental health struggles and I was always in pain and I didn't know how to get out of it. So I would be drinking, I would be smoking, I would just be trying to get out of my body or soothe myself in all these unhealthy ways, drugs, all the things. And I even got kicked out of my parents' house before I graduated high school. So I was going to high school, living on my own. And I kind of continued this. I did like pull it together and get to college. Like learning has always been one of the things that I love most about life. And so I was able to do that. And then I met my husband and I always was that person just like pushing through, just like, it's okay. I'm in pain. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to even have a smile and everything's going to look fine. But when he moved in with me, it was like really hard to keep up that facade because he was just like, wow, you look like you're pregnant after meals and like you're waking up in the middle of the night and like, what is happening? And so he wanted me to get some help. And we tried again when we lived in Los Angeles at that time. But again, no one really had solutions. I had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. It's a wastebasket diagnosis. I'm sure your listeners are aware. And then I took antidepressants and all the things when I was young, and they made me feel like a zombie. I had like one thought an hour. This emotional spectrum that is me, it was gone. And so it wasn't an option. We looked to diet. My husband got on the internet and found that diet was a solution that some people were seeing success with. And of course, I thought that was total BS, but I did it anyway. And it literally changed my digestive health in 30 days. And then it just brought like a sense of empowerment to my life that I was so hopeless like before that, that I think it changed the trajectory from then on. And I've, had a journey with the mental health stuff, and eating psychology was actually what I studied before I even went back and got my master's for holistic nutrition. And I feel really lucky for that, because rather than looking for all of the answers in food and exactly what I'm consuming and like what, I had a broader understanding of the role of food and like in mental health and wellness. And so I was trained by Mark David at the university, or at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. And yeah, it's amazing. And I'm excited to share it.
Awesome. And this is something that I think a lot of people, like you say, we focus so much on how much am I eating? What is the quality of the food? But there's not a lot of conversation around the psychology of our eating. And can you share a little bit about what eating psychology is, just as a broad explanation for those who are like, what do you mean eating
No,
psychology?
totally. Well, yeah, basically eating psychology is like looking at why we eat the way that we do. Like you said, a lot of us holistic nutritionists, we're worried about the quality of our food and what we're putting in our bodies, but we're not equally as concerned with. But what I hope we do become more concerned with is who we are as eaters. Like, who are we bringing to the table? Because it's not only about the food. It's not like everyone's going to digest and assimilate food similarly. They won't. It's like how we're feeling, like how stressed are we, all of how much we're enjoying the food. All of those variables are really, really important for the way that we're going to take that food and what we're going to do with it. And also the reasons we're eating the way that we're eating, right? So if we're overeating, binge eating, body image, it's all of those things is what we're talking about when it comes to eating psychology.
And what I heard in there also is a bioindividuality of, even as we discover eating psychology, how I digest a big plate of food is going to be completely different than how you digest a big plate of food. And so that's something that I've noticed a lot lately. It's people starting to kind of focus on, wait a minute, I can't eat the same as this other person, even though we are the same age, we work out very similarly. Like, there's a lot of bioindividuality that's required in order to have a successful quote unquote diet. Would you
Oh
agree?
my Oh my God, 100%. And then to add to that, it's not only like I can't do this, period. It's like, who am I today? Who am I right now? Where am I at now? Because even what you're going to be able to eat or what might be optimal for you will change with the seasons, because you're dynamic and we're always changing. And so, yes, that's absolutely key.
And what do you feel like is the biggest mistake when it comes to thinking about our eating issues? Like, if we are, in your case, it sounds like we had a very similar upbringing, getting kicked out of our house, during high school and all those things. And we're trying to figure it out. And you and I are both like really hungry to learn things. What are some of the mistakes that people make as they're, you know, looking at all their food, and they're like, wait, I need to do some work here. Perhaps I need to eliminate grains, and perhaps I need to do this. What are we not thinking of as we're adjusting our diet?
Yeah, I love that question. Basically, that it's not like our eating issues are not necessarily about food. And that sounds so weird, right? Because it's like we have spent all this time, and like I have like many, many programs that I've done just about food, but often food is like a doorway. You got to look at your relationship to it, because it's generally pointing to something deeper. And it's just kind of a way to get our attention, for us to learn something. And there's many different reasons that someone might have like a challenge with food. It could actually be about, when you peel the layers back, like your primary relationship, and maybe it's not working right now. Maybe you're not living authentically within that relationship, and you're using food as a way to like, or trying to perfect your food as a way to kind of check out from that. It could be about healing your sexuality, or maybe, like there's not authenticity there. It could be about your family of origin and dynamics that you picked up in childhood. It could be about perfectionism, right? Our culture kind of idealizes being a perfectionist, but it's actually a really imbalanced way to live. And using food to kind of play that out sets us up to be kind of perpetually disappointed and dissatisfied, and it can ruin intimacy. And so, there's a lot of different reasons that we're having eating challenges. But the big mistake I see, other than acknowledging that, oh my gosh, here is this opportunity to heal, is also just trying to fix it. Like seeing it, if we're having an eating challenge, as something that something's wrong with me. Something is wrong with me. And I know that place because I lived in that place for a really long time. But what I hope people learn to do is kind of look at that behavior, look at it as if your child was acting that way, right? With that same love and care. And then just get curious about it rather than being judgmental about it and looking at it as a bad part of it. Just say, okay, if this was here to teach me a lesson, to point me in a certain direction, what would that lesson be? I also have people sometimes take like just a stress inventory, and you just like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at with your primary relationship? And that's not always like who you're living with. That's who spends the most time, you spend the most time thinking about, right? Family of origin, finances, works, a big one, authenticity, perfectionism. Are you living that way? So yeah, I guess just knowing that food issues are not often about food, they're pointing you to something deeper, and then not feeling the need to just fix myself. I have to fix myself. We're all okay, right? We're doing the best we can with what we've got. And we're all here to just learn anyway. So those are the mistakes I see people making.
Yeah, and I think that what I heard from you is the curiosity, more of just when you notice those little things. Something that I found for myself personally is when I go in guns blazing, I'm like, I'm gonna fix myself. It always ends up being that I ruin everything. I get so high strung and so stressed out, and I don't fix anything. But when I'm just curious and I'm like, oh, I wonder what would feel like if I did XYZ. Like right now, I'm playing around with eating 3 meals a day. And a little bit before that, I was like, I want to try 1 meal a day. And what would it feel like if I did this? And how does this impact my thoughts or, even my
Yes.
spiritual health? I've noticed a lot recently as I am, a newly Christian, having spiritual health in like a very healthy way has informed a lot of my eating choices. And when you
Mm.
feel fulfilled spiritually, I find that I'm making completely different choices as it relates to specifically the behavior around food. Is that kind of what you're saying, is kind of looking outside of just I need to fix all of this and being curious as to what would it feel like if I did this?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think that is the person that we want to bring to the table, is that person who has the curiosity rather than the judgment, rather than trying to find the perfect diet, who someone else has discovered something and I'm going to apply it at me. Because the point is, fixing the body is not going to fix the problem or what you're experiencing, right? We need to learn immediately to accept the body that we're living in and then stay curious about it every single day. What's working now? What's working not? It's when we accept ourselves and get inside our body. We call it embodiment in eating psychology, rather than living in our head and learning more and paying attention to what other people are doing. Like really get in and get curious about our own feedback. Curiosity is like my favorite word. I think it is the most important thing when it comes to these eating challenges.
Completely. And what I love there is fixing the body is not going to fix the problem. And I can tell you, I've had 6 pack abs, didn't fix the problem. I got down to my ideal weight, didn't fix the problem. Like no matter what I did, finish my first triathlon, didn't fix the problem. Like all these things in my head that I thought if I could achieve XYZ, then all of a sudden everything would be good in so many ways. Like what you were saying is that embodiment wasn't there. I wasn't curious. I was just like, la, 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 not listening. Here's what we're doing. It actually made the problem a lot worse.
Leanne, yeah, and I want to share that like I was a celebrity fitness trainer back in the day, and I don't say that so it's like, oh, look at me. It's like I was the least happy with my body when every day, I mean, like I was ripped. I remember for my wedding, I had to put my hands up in the air before I walked down the aisle because my muscles were so big and the veins were like popping out. I mean, like, and people would look at me like, that's a good thing. But I was like embarrassed and very strong. But I went to that studio and every day I would find something else. Oh, but just a little bit here. Oh, but look at the way that thigh. Oh my gosh. And I worked with some of the most quote unquote beautiful people in the world, and they were no more happy, even though they had what people are like looking for. And I think that I just want to talk about, it leads me to one of the other major drivers is these like toxic nutritional beliefs that we kind of pick up. The most toxic of which I believe is, I will be happy when. I'll be happy when I change the body. I'll be happy when I make the money. And what we need to realize is when we do that, when we put our happiness somewhere in the future, then we're just held, it's held hostage essentially. And so again, it's just about getting into the body as it is, fully accepting it, be present with it, and understanding that you need to get the end results now, right? So what is it that you're looking for? What will you do differently? How will you go? You'll be more confident. Maybe you'll go for a job. Maybe you'll dress differently. Maybe you'll go different places. We need to do those things now because that's going to create the happiness that might lead to the bodily transformation anyway. But when we wait until somewhere far off in the future for us to finally start living the life that we need or that would make us the most fulfilled, it's just a life of pain and suffering, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, when you say, I'll be happy when, what you're really saying is, I can't be happy now.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people then also believe like, this is not my real body. This is not me again. So what is that causing? When we say that to ourselves, we're totally disembodied. We're living outside of ourselves. And also when it comes to like living or looking that certain way or bodily perfection, it's often an emotion we're looking for underneath that anyway. So if you can think about the things that bring you that emotion, like if it's joy or if it's confidence, like making a list of other things that make you feel confident and then adding those things into your life right now, so that it's not so reliant on food and this bodily perfection that won't even come. And even if you do achieve the exact goal, it will not be as satisfying as you think it is. It just unfortunately never is. I mean, for a small a small section of the population, that might be true. Like you might have wanted to lose 100 pounds and that would make your life significantly different. And that might be true. But for a lot of us who are stuck in that cycle, it won't.
It's just the next thing. You get there and you're like, well, no, no, no. Well, now like I'll do this. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's never ending.
It's that hedonic treadmill, right? Everything you think that is going to bring you the joy and it's going to be it. And then like you've achieved this amazing goal. And then it's like a day later, you're like, okay.
Eh.
And yep. So
And it's
that's
very
human.
dissatisfying. I know for years and years and years chasing after something that I thought would make me happy. Just when I got that thing, I still felt just as empty. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I think one thing that's been really helpful for me in my experience with that emptiness feeling that we have is serving others, truly
Mm,
being in service of others. You completely forget all of the things and you're of not obsessing in your mind about what you look like in yesterday's jeans, or you're just there present with other people and serving. That I think has been the most fulfilling thing for me, which is not something that I would have thought would help the situation.
it's interesting, isn't it? I heard a quote the other day that human beings are happiest when they're giving or growing. And that just, yeah, that meant a lot to me because that is my pursuit. It's not to be the best or the most beautiful or the thinnest. It's just like just a little bit better than I was yesterday. And you're right, that focus on, okay, how can what I'm doing today improve the lives of others? It totally takes us outside of ourselves and it gives us this bigger perspective. And sometimes when I work with clients, I often think of like, okay, it kind of sounds morbid, but we're going to bring death into the picture. Okay, say you had to die, like, and you're writing your own obituary. What do you want people to remember about you? That you had a perfect body and that you were looking your best? Is like probably not. What you probably want is like my life was impactful for others. It served others. I was a great mom or whatever. And so yeah, we often forget that, but I think it's a very important point.
I love the obituary idea. I often think of what am I going to feel or think on my deathbed? Like,
Yeah.
God willing, I'm sitting there in my 90s and, I have my family around me and I'm like, I had the best six pack for like 30 years. That was top achievement. Like I often think of that and I'm like, no, Leanne, no, you're going to be like, I did this and I went here and I helped this person and this and that. And oh, I'm so thankful for the people that were in my life and the fellowship that I had and blah, 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 blah. That's what I'm going to be thinking. And that kind of snaps me out of it also.
Totally, because we have so much energy and possibility and potential as women. And I think far too often these energies are just like diverted to these, what seems important right now, but ultimately not that important. Won't really matter that much. So yeah.
So you mentioned nutritional beliefs, toxic nutritional beliefs. Are there any others that we fall victim of often in our journey?
Oh man, in this culture, it's kind of like an uphill battle, right? And one that I often work with women in particular is it just like food is the enemy. So our culture tells us or has, I think that's changing now, which is really wonderful. A thin body equals success and love and like power. And therefore, if we believe that, then food is kind of our enemy, right? Because we're going to eat food and then all of a sudden it's going to make us bigger. And this is really, really toxic because we have to eat, right? We have to biologically. It is a necessity. And so if every time we're eating, even subconsciously, we believe that food is the enemy, it creates digestive shutdown. There's actually really interesting research around if you are stressed when you're eating, you're not absorbing, your metabolism is, going down. And so food being the enemy, we have to remember that it's supposed to be a really pleasurable experience. And we need to bring that back as women. And so that's one of them. Another one is just like exercising more and eating less is key. And of course, we know that's not the answer either, because that just makes us chronically exhausted, a lot of times nutrient deficient. And again, we just have all of this energy trapped up in how much am I eating every day, weighing my food, and how much am I exercising. And then things like fat in our food should be feared. I know you've totally dispelled that myth for your audience. But surprisingly, there's still a lot of people out there that I work with that are coming up against that. And then also just food is just calories, right? This is something that I fell victim to back in the day. I was a ballerina growing up. And so my mom, and she had the very best of intentions, and she's an amazing mother, but she told me food, it's all the same. You can have whatever you want. It's just as much as long as you have the right amount of calories. And so I just ate candy and, because I was like, well, it's gonna, I really like that. So it doesn't matter. So I guess I'll just eat that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that, I didn't fare so well. But I think when we look at it just like that, we forget about its brilliance. We don't make good choices and on and on. But there's quite a few of them. But I think those are the main ones that I come up against.
I was the same. My mother had the same conversation with me. It doesn't matter what you eat. And I was like, okay, candy. Yep, that's what I'm going to live on. Why not?
I sold my things so that I could get money. And then I'd buy like 6 candy bars and like caramel apple suckers every day. I was called the caramel apple sucker girl. It was, not good.
I remember my sister and I won a Safeway gift card. This was like a grocery store in Canada. And we were grocery shopping we went to Safeway to get candy. And then we did this little giveaway thing. And we actually won a $50 Safeway gift card while we were checking out with the candy. And we looked at each other like, more candy, and just went back and bought more. So, yeah. I feel you on the candy.
Yep.
It's so tasty.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned a pleasurable experience, and I imagine like eating slowly, taking our time. How crucial is this for our health? And I'm going to pay close attention because this is something I'm really trying to work on right now. It's like, take your time, chew your food. You don't need to rush off anywhere, but it is hard to remember to do that. And why is it important?
Yeah, no, I love one of the first things I ask people when I work with them is like, are you a fast, slow, or moderate eater? Okay. 70% for sure. Fast eater, myself included. We're addicted to speed in this culture. We want really fast internet. We want fast cars. We want fast service. We want everything fast. And, but yes, so there's research to suggest just eating fast is seen by the body as a stressor, because we are supposed to be taking our time, being in community, like really noticing things. There's also something called the cephalic phase digestive response. And that is literally like this super fancy term, which just means the head phase of digestion. So it's the sight, the smell, the aroma, the texture of our food. And that is thought to be responsible for about 30 to 40% of our digestive capacity. So when we're just eating really quickly, we miss all of that. And so our digestive capacity is shut down. And also, like, food is our most readily available source of pleasure. And we are biologically, we have to have pleasure in our life. I know our culture has a tricky relationship with that. I meet a lot of women for whom it's hard to experience or receive pleasure. It's like, it's very difficult, but we just need to realize that we have to do it. And eating slowly every single day is one simple way to kind of invite that into your life. And so it does, it just looks like, it even starts with like setting the tone if you can, even if you have like a favorite bowl. It sounds so silly, but like a favorite bowl, a favorite spoon, maybe some candlelight, some soft music, eating only with people that you love, taking 5 slow, deep breaths. And then again, being a curious eater. Like something this year that is so simple that I've started doing is like just looking, noticing. Like if I'm gonna have a square of dark chocolate, I'm just gonna look at it. Like, is there anything written on it? I didn't always do that. I was like, pop it in, moving on. But yeah, just taking the time, looking, how does it smell? How does it taste? How does it feel when it goes down? And not only like noticing, but then also waiting for your body's feedback, right? How'd that feel? How do I feel 20 minutes after? I think it's just that complete, a lot of us are just eating and then moving on. And they've done some really interesting trials too, where they have this dichotomous listening task where they put like, you're learning about like physics in one ear and like, I don't know, like pop culture in the other. And then they have people eat. And what they learn is that the people who are relaxed in eating without the dichotomous listening task, they absorb 100% of like sodium and chloride, I think is what they measured in this particular study. And when you did the dichotomous listening task, completely shut down. Completely. So if we're multitasking, we're driving, we're watching movies, we're missing that experience, we're missing that pleasure. And so our body will prompt us, okay, I need more. Because essentially it didn't happen for us. So it will say, eat more, I need more. So basically, the more awareness you can bring and the slow speed you can bring to the dinner table, the more we're going to have to eat. And the fact that we're not going to be prompted to look for all these other sources of pleasure because we just took the time to be present with it. So I think like presence and awareness is like helps your metabolism, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
So wonderful. And I spent a lot of time in India many, many years ago. And what I loved about being specifically in South India is everyone eats with their hands. And when I got back, it's stuck with me for the last 7 years. I love eating with my hands because I take my time. You know, when you're shoveling food in your mouth with a fork, like it's so easy. But when you have your hands, you're touching all your food. I really like with raspberries, like I'll rub them against my lips. I'm like, oh, they're so
Mm.
soft. I just love this, like just
Oh,
taking my time with it. And I mean, I'm obsessed with just like holding the food. I mean, wash your hands before, folks, obviously, but just, like holding the food, taking my time with the food. I find that really helps as opposed to using utensils. I have to go so much slower with my hands. And for somebody who, if you were to ask me how fast are you eating, I'm like lightning speed, like just get it down super fast. I'm like, whoa, did I just eat? That just happened. So I find eating with my hands
mm,
take it like allows me to slow down. And I think too, what you said, taking our time and eating around people that we care for, that's a big one. Like if I'm like I when I was in the corporate world and we go for those corporate lunches, like I do not want to eat while we're talking shop about business stuff. Like can we I'm fasting. I'm not eating lunch because every time I would eat and we'd be stressed and talking numbers and revenues, I'd always have a stomach ache and it really affected me all the
mhm.
time, all the time. It's
That's
crazy.
exactly, yeah, it's because we need to be in a relaxed state ideally for that to go well. Like you said, heartburn. That's one of those things when you're eating stressed, often heartburn is a result, gas, bloating, all of those digestive secretions that are supposed to be happening, they don't happen anymore. And I know there are like degrees of stress response, but yeah, like also just allocating like 10 minutes even in the beginning was a struggle for me. Or to say, Autumn, you can't eat it in the car. Like start where you're at. You don't need to have this luxurious 4-hour meal all of a sudden, but just like little steps over time can make a big difference. What I was doing lately is like putting my chocolate under my tongue and just kind of letting it melt rather than just eating a square of chocolate and like something like that. And there's this really fascinating story that Mark David shared with me that just like changed my view around this forever. And he was working with a doctor, and this particular doctor of Chinese medicine, he was overweight. He wasn't feeling good. He had heartburn and all these digestive issues. And he was like, okay, what can I do? I don't want to change my diet, but every day I have 2 Big Macs for lunch and I go and to McDonald's in the morning and I get like sausage McMuffins or whatever. I'm not going to change that. But what can I do to feel better? And so Mark told him, go sit in your car, pull over, eat those Big Macs and savor every bite. Just look at it and like love it and notice every taste. And the doctor called him back like a week later and he's like, oh my gosh, I did it. And guess what? I hate Big Macs. I'm not going to eat them anymore. I was eating them so fast and I was putting on ketchup. I didn't even notice. But like when I actually started to pay attention to what I'm consuming, I realized I don't even like it. It wasn't serving me. And it was just another way to like facilitate dietary change. So I thought that was genius.
I love that story. That's so true. That is so true. I mean, I can relate. We were talking about candy earlier. Over the last year, I've really, like if I'm going to go off the ketogenic diet, it's always for candy. But over the last year, I've really taken my time with candy. Like I'll take my time, I'll sit there, I'll smell it, I'll taste it, I'll really stay present with the experience. And I've learned that I really don't actually like candy. It makes me feel quite horrible after, and the taste isn't all that good.
Oh
Isn't
my
that funny?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. And I'm rarely found eating candy, if ever. Like I don't know that I do, but like I'll have something like, like a sundae or like I'm more of an ice cream girl. But the thing is, I wanted to share that it totally reminded me of like a lot of people who are like binge eaters are like, oh my gosh, I'm so out of control. And what I often have to do, and what's such a powerful intervention, is exactly what you just said. In order to binge, you have to be in a stress response. So if you do that, we call it ritualize the binge. You say, yeah, I'm going to get those 2 pints of ice cream that I'm usually binging on, and I'm going to put 1/3 of one in my favorite bowl. I'm going to light a candle. I'm just going to be there. I'm going to really pay attention. It's usually enough for people to realize, wow, maybe I just had 1 pint that night instead of the two. But yeah, it's a lot of us just checking out, missing the experience, and eating about things completely other than food that are actually driving the behaviors.
Mm. And you mentioned seasons before. Can we talk a little bit about like seasons of nourishment and going like the ebb and flow of things?
Yeah, the season idea just kind of like helps us locate where we are with food, right? And a lot of us are coming at it like, okay, well, I'm going to do this one diet because this is what's been successful and this is what's working now. And then I'm going to just bang my head against the wall. And even if it's not working anymore, I'm just going to stick with it. But know that we are cyclical creatures, especially women, and that we're going to go through these different phases. And like one, for instance, is just like a cleansing phase. And I know it was a few months back, but like New Year's is coming and we all have this like desire to like kind of like tighten things up or like let go of processed foods or whatever. And so that's awesome. And we can be there for a while. Now, some of us get like it warped and we get stuck there, but like a successful cleansing phase will have an end. Like we'll feel a sense of renewal and then we'll put that away and then we can move on, maybe to something like a building phase. And building phases are like phases where you just feel more power. You feel like a natural sense of excitement and you're more attracted to more exercise and maybe more food, and it's all good. Maybe you're gaining muscle, maybe you're taking on a new adventure, whatever. And you realize sometimes that you can actually eat more during this phase, and it doesn't bother you. And it's just what your body is calling for. And then we have something like a sustaining phase. And a lot of us like pathologize this phase. And this is called a plateau for a lot of people. It's like where your body just wants to stay wherever it wants to stay. And this phase is like asking us to let's not be so concerned with what we're eating anymore, maybe. Let's go for other things in life. Let's focus on family or career or something else. But I think it's when we get this phase and then we get terrified about this phase and we get tight around this phase and then it won't change. And what does that mean about us? And sometimes it's just like the opposite. We need to relax into the phase, realize, this is a season. I'm going to move through this. And the last one, I mean, there are several, but it's like the anything goes phase or like the celebration phase. We are just drawn to food as entertainment and food for the sake of pleasure. And these are, often times of like transition, celebration in life. And I just hope that we can also greet those with like love and like embrace that rather than like beating ourselves up for, oh my gosh, look at me. My willpower, it just sucks. I'm a willpower weakling. It's like, no, I'm a person moving through a season and I can let myself go there and know that I'll move out of that season too. So I think the idea is just moving, paying attention. What are you needing now? And staying curious and non-judgmental, no matter what that might be.
Yeah, I think people get stuck either thinking that they need to stay in this phase forever. Like I can't tell you how many women I've worked with and they've eaten the same macros every day, the same calories every day, done the exact same thing for the last 6 years. And I'm like, how even? Like I
Yeah.
no, we need to switch it up. It
We
needs to be
have to.
switched.
The body needs variety, the body needs pleasure, and the body needs to be paid attention to. And I'm guilty of that, or I could be. Like I'm a very type A. I'm like, okay, well, I want to be efficient and I don't want to have to think about food all the time. But I find that when I get in that place, things don't go well for me health-wise. And I start to get that uptight place. And I need to just like, okay, let's go have something. Like, like let's go out to dinner and have a dessert and I'll celebrate and like, just enjoy things. And so yeah, it's just like moving through those phases. And also like for a woman's cycle, I find that too, like I'm kind of in the building phase in the beginning. And then I have, the end is a little more like I just need to eat emotionally or anything goes kind of phase. And then we kind of move back. So yeah, just like appreciating and embracing that about ourselves is important.
I'm really glad that you talked about the cycle. That's something that I've been really fascinated with over the last year, and bringing in different foods at different times of our cycle, different fasting techniques. What I do on day
Yes.
2 of my cycle is completely different than day 27.
Yes, me too. I'm totally a faster in the beginning of my
Yeah.
cycle in that follicular phase. It's easy for me. It's just like, this is what my body wants. It's fine. But in those last few days, oh, heck no, I am not going to be fasting. My body is just telling me I need food. I need to make progesterone, give me what I want. And I'm not going to deny it that like I would have before my former self, but I know now that I'm just working against my biology. I'm not going to win that battle. So just
Never.
going
You're
for it.
never going to win. And when
Yeah.
you push so hard, then those are those times, at least for me, where I push, push, push. And then 3 days later, my face is buried in something that I wanted just a little bit of. And had I just had that little bit, I could have moved on from life, but I didn't. And then it turned it into a huge thing.
I know, I know. Usually I don't have sugar in the house, but sometimes I find, I just like to have a little some sweet treat because I can obsess about that. And then, like you said, end up eating the whole pint of ice cream, or I can just have a little bit and then be like, oh, cool. That's great. Moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also for myself with anxiety, that's kind of like the ticket for me is if somebody says, hey, do you want to go out for breakfast? And I get anxiety of like, but I'm fasting right now. And how am I going to make that work? I'm like, yes, I will go out for breakfast because this is a great lesson for me because I just experienced anxiety and I need to work through this like an adult.
I love that. Yes, lean in. We always think like those strong emotions mean we shouldn't be doing whatever it is that we're thinking about doing, and it's often the opposite. We just need to lean into it. My experience is not so much about food around this; it's just like guilt around mama guilt. Oh man! And like my friend asked me to go hiking the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's 4 hours, and what is he gonna do? And I was like, you know what? I'm going. I'm going because I have to go and I have to prioritize myself and I have to lean into those uncomfortable emotions. And it's only then that you'll like move through them and, evolve and be more comfortable prioritizing yourself. So yeah, couldn't agree more.
And learn that it wasn't such a big deal.
Right.
And like,
Breaking the fast, you'll probably be okay.
you'll be fine, Leanne. You're not going to die. It'll be okay. Just constantly reiterating that fact over and over and over.
Yeah.
What are some of maybe like 3 simple steps that people can use or listeners today can use to really improve their relationship with food? They've just heard this great conversation, but what are like some 3 big takeaways?
Okay. Well, the first one I want to talk about is like, this is one of the first things I always do with my clients. And that's to create a pleasure inventory, because a lot of times when we're doing like overeating behavior, binging behavior, whatever, it's because we don't have enough pleasure in our life. And so food is our most readily available source of pleasure. And so if we make a list, top 10 things I would do on a Saturday when I woke up, I had nobody to care for and the world was just mine. Like, what would you do? Like for me, it's just hiking. I'd create a playlist. I'd probably go for a dance party. I'd get some coffee with a good friend. I'd walk the dog, whatever, make it up for you. And then make sure that you're just adding at least 3 of those into your week every week. We just all we need more pleasure, especially today. Oh my gosh. So that's the first thing I do. And then the second thing I would do is, of course, eating slowly. It sounds so simple. It is so simple. And when I work with people, so few of them are actually doing it. But like I said before, starting where you're at. If you're right now a car eater while you're driving person, just try not to do that. Like pull over and eat. Okay. And if you're someone who takes 5 minutes, try taking 10 minutes. Okay. Just like meet yourself where you're at, but making a concerted effort just to eat a little bit more slowly and to be really, really present, because that's going to change the amount that you need to eat and your metabolism. So that's pretty cool. The last one, well, actually I have like 2 more. And that would be doing things not only from a place of curiosity, but also from a place of like love, like you just made for an example, like you got anxious because you wanted to go to breakfast, probably some sort of fear about what would happen if you weren't fasting. And when you notice those thoughts based in fear, yeah, like working to dismantle them, move through them, and remembering you want to take the actions that are motivated by love. Right? Love for my body. And like you did that right there. Like, okay, I need to move through this because I'm anxious. And just noticing, okay, how am I motivated here? Just taking a moment to pause. Like, where is that coming from? Is it a place of love? Is it a place of fear? And just like trying to move more of your decisions from a place of love. And then the last one is authenticity. Didn't talk about it a lot, but a lot of times eating challenges, just challenging behavior in general, is just because we are not in alignment with our truth. We're not doing the things that we want to be doing. We're not feeling fulfilled. We're in a dynamic where we're not feeling empowered, and on and on. But if you can just I have people do like a desire inventory, and like, no matter how silly it sounds, the top 10 things that you would want, like that you've always wanted, go back to when you were a little girl, and then just seeing like, how is what I'm doing aligning with these things? It's often very insightful and impactful. So those would be my 4 things.
That's awesome. And Autumn, where can people learn more from you, connect with you? Where can they go to find all your stuff?
Okay, you guys can come over to paleovalley.com and wildpastures.com. Those are the 2 businesses I didn't even mention. I'm the worst marketer ever, but that's probably a good thing. Yeah, we create like organic food products over at paleovalley.com and supplements. And then Wild Pastures is our meat delivery service. It's a regenerative meat delivery service. And so we only source from farmers who are like using and measuring ecological outcomes to determine how are our practices impacting the quality of the soil. So that's wildpastures.com. You can also reach out to me just personally at autumn@paleovalley.com. If you're mad about something I said or you're happy about it, I like all feedback. I'm open to it all. So yeah, reach out to me any of those ways.
I love that, Autumn. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. You're always a blast to chat with, and thank you for sharing with our listeners.
You're so welcome. Always a pleasure. Great to see your face.
Autumn shared so much great information, right? Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you want to go deeper into your ketogenic diet and you're just not really sure how to start, where to go, I've created a free guide. You can check it out up there. And also, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can do that right down there. And I will see you next week for another episode of the Keto Diet Podcast. Bye.